I had used food for comfort. And also, I feel like and I've learned this now, that a lot of our celebrations, or you get a promotion, even funerals, things like that, your family events revolve around food. Once I got into my adult life, I got married pretty young. And my husband and I got very comfortable together. And, when you get married, there's always the you gain weight together type of thing. We gained a lot of weight together. We got very comfortable with one another. 378 pounds. And I was like, creeping up to 400. And that's a scary number. 378 scary, right? 300
Yeah.
scary. But, close to 400 pounds, I was like, I have to do something.
From a lifestyle of fad diets to a mental shift that took her from 378 pounds to losing over 250 pounds and counting. Today, my guest, Amy, is going to share her story and what inspired her, where she kind of found different situations where it was hard. She's going to give us the real scoop on how to get from there to here. Amy, thank you so much for being here today. We're so happy to have you on Pop Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to do this.
So start at the beginning. Let's go back to when you were 378 pounds. Everyone has their own journey. What do you think contributed to getting you to that point?
At that point, I think that I had used food for comfort. And also, I feel like and I've learned this now, that a lot of our celebrations, or you get a promotion, even funerals, things like that, your family events revolve around food. And I think for so long, that was something that I used to comfort myself or shield myself, or, celebrations, I would grab whatever it was, like a piece of cake, things like that. And I think that everything kind of revolved around food. Even our vacations, like we would plan, around like, what food spots can we hit? So I feel like that's kind of where I was. I was very sedentary once I got into my adult life. I got married pretty young. And my husband and I got very comfortable together. And, when you get married, there's always the you gain weight together type of thing. We gained a lot of weight together. We got very comfortable with one another. And I think we just kind of utilized that as our focus for anything that we did. And, that's how we got to where we were. So 378 pounds. And I was like, creeping up to 400. And that's a scary number. 378 scary, right? 300 scary. But, close to 400 pounds. I was like, I have to do something.
I've been talking to different weight loss warriors, I call them, in the community for like a little over a year. And no matter what the number, it's all like scary to the individual because it's their number and it was a place that they didn't want to be, So what was the moment that you were like, you and your husband, because I see you guys are doing this together also, which I think is awesome. When did you guys say, enough? This is enough. We have to do something.
So honestly, it happened at two different times. So I'll tell you that. Yeah. So in 2016 is when I had my original bariatric surgery. So I had vertical sleeve gastrectomy. And for me, I was in a very physical job, and it was very hard for me to do that physical job. I was an event manager, so I was running around doing all these things. I was in the floor doing things for my clients, helping out wherever I needed to. And I would just be pouring the sweat. And so at that point, I was like, I can't. Either I need to find another job, or, I need to do something about this. And so I did something about it. So I started pursuing bariatric surgery because as a lifelong struggler of fad diets and, doing the lose weight or try to lose weight and exercise more type of thing, I knew that I needed an additional tool to help me out. And so I made a mental shift then in 2016. My husband will now tell you he did not make that mental shift with me. So,
Okay.
he still kind of brought in the junk food and, wanted to do all the things and couldn't understand why I couldn't eat the same way that I used to before.
Okay.
While he kind of walked with me and did the things with me, it wasn't his thing at the time. So fast forward about a year post-op, I was down to like 259 pounds.
Wow.
I got a new job and we moved completely different state. We moved away from support systems, families, everything. When we moved, we started like exploring our area and old habits kind of started to creep back in. I developed some health conditions, one specifically related to my sleeve gastrectomy. I developed severe acid reflux and GERD and things
Mm.
like that, and which is not fun to suffer through at all. And this all happened right around the time of like end of 2019, beginning of 2020. We all know what 2020 brought
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it took me a while to like work through, actually what it was. When I
Because you
finally
couldn't get appointments, I guess. It was hard. So you were just suffering through that?
yeah,
Good night.
yeah, it was pretty bad. If you've ever suffered through reflux, sometimes you think it's a cardiac issue. So you might
Mm.
think it's like almost like you're having a heart attack, but it's like in that same area. And so, got checked out by a cardiologist and he's like, it's not, you're good. Have you ever thought about reflux? And I was like, no, I don't have that. And I'll be darned if I didn't have it. But yeah, it took me a while to get in to see like a specialist, get the testing because they weren't doing any like non-emergent, right? Or things like
Right.
that. And so it took me a while to get testing and a provider who actually kind of understood it. And, he told me that basically what was happening was my sleeve stomach, my esophagus was too large of an opening. My sleeve stomach was kind of pushing up into my esophagus, causing that
Oh,
reflux.
oh my gosh. That
Yeah.
must have been so uncomfortable.
It
Oh
was
my
pretty
gosh.
miserable, yeah, but I would say the last probably 3, 4 months before I had my revision surgery, I was pretty much on, like, a soft food diet,
Oh,
liquids. The only thing I could truly tolerate was carbs, because they're bland and,
yeah.
they don't cause any issues. So I had some regain associated with that as well. So I had a revision in 2021 and my regain weight was 329.
Wow.
Uh,
Thank you for touching on that
yeah,
because,
yeah,
one of the reasons that we wanted to create Berry Prep and Recover is because sometimes, not sure if it was the provider or the type of surgery, but like a lot of times there is data that is available that will tell
mhm,
you like maybe this isn't the right one. Maybe it needs to be this one. Maybe this is the, this isn't the right provider. Maybe it needs to be this one, because we want to help people not have to go through that. But I'm glad that you're sharing that you went through that because you regained up to 329 and you still are where you're at now. So I think that's so important to remember if you're listening to this right now. Do not give up on your journey. Just
yeah,
because things happens and there's a setback, it doesn't mean that it has to set you up for failure. It can set you up for success.
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
So
yeah, and
2021, you went back and tell me what happened.
yeah, so 2021, I got a fabulous provider, a new provider. And so I
Okay.
will touch on what you said is that my initial provider didn't provide much information or much in the way of pre-op or post-op involvement. My new program is very involved, ton of pre-op appointments. We've had multiple post-op appointments, and my team is amazing. So I will
Awesome.
say that it's great to have a really good team and provider to work with you. But yeah, 2021, I had my revision surgery. And I will say, shortly before that, my husband had an Achilles rupture. So he had to have an Achilles complete repair.
Wow.
And it's kind of a weird thing, it usually happens to athletes, right? We've seen it in the beginning of this past football season, basketball season, we usually see it. We were walking around our neighborhood and he stepped on a sidewalk that was kind of uneven. it tore his Achilles and eventually it ruptured. So,
Wow.
we're not triathletes or anything, but he was in a cast and a boot for about 3 to 4 months, and he's type 2 diabetic. So the thing that kind of scared him during that time was the surgeon told him, if you get an infection while you're in this cast or this boot, we may have to do another surgery, or if it gets bad enough, we may have to amputate, toes, feet, whatever.
Oh my
So
gosh.
literally at that point, and that was right around the time of my revision, he was like, okay, I'm on board with you this time. Like, we're going to do it. And of course I was like, okay. But in my head, I was like, I'm totally doing it, whether you're doing it or not.
Sounds good, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to depend my success, honey. Love you.
Yes, exactly. So once we both got cleared from surgery in early 2022 is when we started to just kind of go for it. We started out with nutritional changes. Of course, with bariatric surgery, that's always necessary. But for him, we eliminated a lot of the stuff, in our house, and he focused on a true diabetic diet for him, which he had not done. And then we started walking more around our neighborhood once we both got clearance for activity. Then we started doing cardio classes, and we kind of did that all through 2022, kind of focused on those things. And then last year we added in strength training classes, fell in love with Peloton. We've had a total mind shift. We focus more now on adventures than we do on food. And we've learned, that family activities, even though it kind of centers around food, we don't have to be those, we don't have to indulge in all of that. Or we can make something that we can have, things like that.
So speaking of indulging, when you're in those family environments and there are things that you are tempted to have, how do you overcome that? Will you have just a little bit, or how do you and your husband navigate that? Or I should say, I'm talking like your husband's right here, but I saw both of your journeys together. So
that's fine. He will indulge a little bit. So he will indulge a little bit in them. For me, unfortunately, or unfortunately, I guess I could say, I can't and I won't indulge, only because while we talked about the one complication I have, I also have developed a condition that has me have hypoglycemic episodes if I eat too many carbs or sugar, which is kind of a rare complication of bariatric surgery, but it is a complication. And so what happens is, if I have that, my sugar spikes really, really high and then drops really, really fast within a short amount of time. And so for me, it's just not worth that feeling in order to, indulge a little bit. I have found things that, I can tolerate. And so I kind of gravitate towards those. But I was at my sister's surprise birthday party in November, and they had this beautiful cake and full candy bar. And I just walked right past it and wasn't tempted at all, because I know how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
But there's things that I have. I'm not going to say that I won't have a cookie or, things like that. I've just learned to kind of make them in ways that work well with my body.
That's amazing. I always say, when your must changes, you felt like I must not feel that way. So in order to not feel that way, I'm not going to do this. But it takes a lot of time. I dealt with a lot of bulimia when I was growing up, because food was my emotional support. I'm sad, I'm happy. Food and alcohol used to be a big thing for me. And so I totally understand how, when you're going through the transition, sometimes it's one thing I admire about bariatric surgery patients is you guys didn't even get an opportunity to really change anything from the inside too quickly. You have to do that on your own. You can't just when you do it on your own naturally, they say, you still have time. Your stomach just shrinks gradually along with your change of habits. But when you have bariatric surgery, it's like that. So I imagine there's a little bit of grief that comes along with not being able. Did you experience that at all?
I will say with my original surgery, yes, I
Okay.
did. It was very difficult to like be in those situations and want to like eat the way you did before or enjoy the things you did before without feeling that restriction.
Yeah.
And I will say that with my original surgery, yes, completely I did. And I think also because my husband was also getting to enjoy those things, it
Yeah.
made it a little bit harder. With this revision surgery, I had already had, my stomach was already smaller,
Yeah.
um, and so I already had that restriction. It was just getting it back, because I was learning to like they say you can like eat around your pouch, right? And
Yeah.
so I was learning how to do that only with foods that I could tolerate while I was going
Mm.
through everything I was going through. So when I had the revision surgery, I thought I would feel more like it was a restriction, but I actually felt more like a weight was lifted almost, that I didn't have those feelings of grief or regret around food, and that I could truly focus on like healing me
Yeah.
without thinking about the food.
And so what does that translate into now? Because do you ever, I have been told like sometimes because for so many years you have certain habits. And then even once you change them, it's still a new set of years. What are some of the things that you still mentally have to overcome, even at this stage of your accomplishment?
I will say that I'm still a sweets girly. Sometimes I overindulge in the sweets that I can have, so it's hard for me to let go of that. It was always something that comforted me. I mean, you talk about like your pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? And you're sitting there watching, you're
Yeah.
binge watching TV. So
Yeah.
now I just have like, yeah, so Greek yogurt bars instead, and or I make some like protein cookies. So those things, I think I'll always be a sweets person, and I'll always have those. And I do think sometimes we feel a little bit pressured in family situations to, enjoy or indulge or things like that. And so we've kind of learned to, I'm trying to think of the right word, like tune it out so that it doesn't affect us mentally. A lot of people don't understand the shift of, you may have grown up in a household where you clean your plate, right?
Yeah.
Bariatric patients don't clean their plates.
Right.
And my
Unless
husband's
it's a
picked up that.
very small one, right?
Yeah, exactly. And my husband's picked that up too, right? He's learned his fullness cues. And so a lot of the comments we get are, is that all you're going to eat? Or was it not good? So kind of learning to navigate those type of things so you don't feel the pressure in order to,
Yeah.
keep eating, even when you're full. And so
Right.
learning to navigate all of those things it's still a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge. Mentally, that mental part, I think, is something that we will fight for the rest of our life, and we just work on it every single day.
What are some of the adventures that you can do now that you weren't able to do before that really stand out for you? Just like every time you do it, you're like, I can do this.
Honestly, for us, I think it's one thing is our workouts every morning. So we do work out about 5 to 6 days a week, and we would have never felt the ability to be able to do that. And some of the things that we do are pretty intensive. So that's something that we really enjoy doing together. The other thing is we actually treated ourselves about 6 months in. It was our 20th wedding anniversary, and we went to Disney. We had never gone as kids, and so this was our first time as 40 something adults, crying in front of the castle, riding all of the roller coasters, because I don't know if anyone has ever tried to go to a theme park or amusement park or anything as an obese individual, but they are not, I think Disney calls it like poo friendly. They are not friendly rides. we actually went to Universal in 2016 after my original bariatric surgery. And the only thing we could ride at Universal was the Harry Potter train that went in between, the two parks. That was it. We couldn't fit on
Wow.
anything else. And so for, Disney for us, I think was huge. Just going on vacation, like we go on cruises, we go, on beach trips, things like that, and just not focusing on the food aspect and actually focusing on walking on the beach or walking around town, finding new things to do. Our next thing that we want to do is like zip lining. My husband's like really big into this. We actually saw them doing it on our cruise for our 20th anniversary, but we were right at the cusp of the weight limit when we went on
Okay.
that cruise. And so we didn't feel comfortable, doing it. But now we could probably do a tandem, a tandem one together,
Yeah.
which is really fun. Yeah, we're excited for, our first plane ride since we've lost weight. We're actually trying to plan another trip to Disney, and so we want to fly for that because when we've flown previously, we would have to buy 3 seats. So we would have one seat and him and me, and then the middle seat would be free, so we could have like the overflow space, and we wouldn't
Yeah.
crowd someone else.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I mean, sometimes we just go like around our town and just walk. We would have never done that before. Never.
That's
So
amazing. And I tell you, 5, 6 days a week doing the workouts that y'all do, that's a lot because I do 3 days right now. And I was supposed to go today. And I was like, nope, I'm sore. I have to meet with Amy. Like every excuse in the book. There's
sometimes sometimes you need a rest day, and that's great. I don't know. I feel like it starts my day off like on the right foot.
right.
And that took a while though. I mean, that took a really long while for me to get to that point. So my husband absolutely loves it, and he's just like, "Let's go." And some mornings I'm like, "I need my pre-workout first."
Yeah. So there's someone watching who is either haven't started their bariatric journey because they're nervous or scared or they have naysayers or whatever the reason, or they're right in the middle of it and they look at you and say, I don't know if I'll ever get there. What do you have to say to that person?
I would say to that person, first of all, please don't compare your journey to someone else's journey. Your journey is yours alone, and my journey is mine. And while it's great to have an inspiration or a goal, please make it something attainable for you, because I will say I did that. During my first surgery, I did that. I looked at all the loss surgery influencers that are out there, and they had their little hourglass figures and, all of these things. And they were like, I went from a size 28 to a size 2. And I was like, I want that. But you don't see like that in between part. You only see the before and the after. And your journey might be a little bit different. Your journey might take a little bit longer. Your journey might hit a stagnant point, or a point where you're just like, nope. And then you may need another tool to help you. And I always say this, that, and you've probably heard this, but comparison is the thief of joy. So if you're comparing yourself to others, you're not learning and living and enjoying your current journey. You're always thinking about the next thing, or, whatever this might be that you're looking to attain, but you're not enjoying and celebrating the current moment. And I think a lot of people do that, and then they steal their joy from their own journey.
That's so true. So if our listeners wanted to follow you and find out what you're doing, see if you go on that zip line, see your next vacations, where can they find you?
Sure. So on Instagram and TikTok, the screen name is the same. It's Carey's in Chaos, and it shares a lot about my husband and I. I've finally gotten him to, take videos and pictures with me. But yeah, I share a lot about our journey, and I'm getting more into sharing, about some of the things that just aren't talked about, especially with bariatric surgery. Yeah.
Love that. Well, we're going to make sure that we have all your information in the captions, your Instagram handle, your TikTok handle, and links so that if they want to follow you, they'll be able to very easily. We're also going to be sharing snippets of this episode on the official POP podcast and POP Recovery Systems. You know where to find us. Amy, thank you so, so much for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to chat with you and chat with everybody. And I hope, that someone can take just a little snippet of this and, enjoy their own journey.
Thank you so much. And if you are on your bariatric or weight loss journey in the beginning, middle, or end, make sure you follow influencers like Carey's in Chaos so that you can just see different aspects, different perspectives. But remember, just like Amy said, your journey is your own. We'll see you next time on POP Podcast.